Hey, what's up? What's up, guys? Welcome to Law Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, small law firm in central Minnesota. We've got breaking news update in the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin nonsense that's been going on. We've got the Chauvin trial, and obviously that's been going on for the past week here. And yet today, after the jury entered deliberations at the end of the day yesterday, they came with a verdict that was announced that the verdict was reached a little while ago. So, I mean, we're talking they came to that verdict decision very quickly. And now we're just going to wait for about 15 minutes to see what the verdict actually is. So give me a second. I'm going to frame up the shot. Oh, it's already framed up. How nice. It's already there. It's ready to go. As soon as they switch over to that, I will unmute them and we will watch the jury's verdict. But I think the fast turnaround on that, it indicates not good things for Derek Chauvin, is my initial thought. I have been sticking with the idea that I thought they would find him not guilty on second-degree murder, but guilty on second-degree manslaughter. I'm sticking with it because you got to stick with it. You got to stick with I'm not changing in the fourth quarter here, but that's the thoughts. Hey, I used to work in that building right behind the guy on the right there, not the one on the left. The left is the courthouse. The one on the right is the building I used to work in. Up on the good old 12th floor. Oh, hey, you can't see it. There it is. There it is, that weird slopey building on the right. Yeah, I used to work there. Anyway, there's no point in changing decisions now. What I thought was we would find like I said, a guilty verdict on the manslaughter too. I think the defense raised quite a bit of doubt as to the underlying assault. I thought they would be able to do that very well. I thought they challenged the experts in the use of force very well. So even if they found that Chauvin was the cause of death of George Floyd, they would have to overcome the use of force. Now, with that said, it seemed like he used reasonable force, at least at the onset, and somewhere along the way it transitioned. Now, a good way that I thought that they could compromise through that was to come up with a guilty verdict on the manslaughter too. If they needed to compromise is the idea, not that they needed to automatically, but if that was what they needed, they felt that the death was the fault of Chauvin, but that he didn't use excessive force, because there's not a lot of indicators of excessive force other than the death itself, that they could go with him creating a situation in which George Floyd needed to have medical attention, and his situation that he created prevented that medical attention from happening, and that he had a duty to give that medical care. I think they could establish that. So that's why I was thinking the manslaughter too. As to what they chose, we'll find out, I suppose, in just a little bit. It's always interesting watching someone else's life hang in the balance, and us just watching at home, like with our popcorn or whatever, ramen in my case. We'll see. I assume there's still going to be rioting either way. Like, I actually think that there is no verdict that will turn back a non-riot result. I think that's been the gambit all along, is that we're going to see loads of unrest and rioting, even if he's guilty on the murder too. So that's make sure your buildings have life insurance. Very important to make sure your buildings have life insurance. I know that you as a person cannot acquire life insurance. People don't have it, but buildings do. So make sure you've got it if you're in the Minneapolis area. That being said, as we wait for this verdict, I have a couple announcements to make in regards to the show tomorrow or today at 6:30 p.m. So in just over 3 hours, I'll actually, or 6 p.m., just under 3 hours. Oh my gosh. I'll actually have Vox Day on to discuss some stuff related to the Owen Benjamin versus Patreon conflict and what's been going on there. I'm not assuming that'll be the longest show ever, but you're welcome to come hang out and watch that discussion if you want kind of an update in that case, as much update as he's able to give us. So that'll be interesting. Tonight, we'll be finishing, I guess, the defense argument, and we'll get to weigh out how much that argument matters, I guess. We'll know the result. So that'll be fun. But for thoroughness, we are going to finish up Eric Nelson's defense closing arguments of George Floyd. That'll be tonight at 11. And I will discuss with you what is currently up on my locals page for subscribers. They already know I made a critical error today. I said, I wonder what random nobody is going to pick a fight with me on today. With nothing, nothing. Just because some random dope is still arguing with people on Twitter over some just tweets of me making fun of them over the past couple days. But my prayers were answered. Someone has picked a very real fight with me, not a fake one, not a Twitter flame fight. I got from a lawyer, allegedly. I mean, it's a real lawyer, assuming the email is real. I got from a lawyer a demand for $50,000 or else I will be sued. But I will not tell you who it is until tonight. So I guess I'm going to have to do one of those videos with me in the thumbnail like this, saying I'm getting sued. So yeah, this will be fun times, I think. So good. I'll spoil my response to the lawsuit was, I can only assume you are joking. That's what I sent back to the other lawyer. But I will be we will definitely be discussing anything that happens in regards to said lawsuit. So you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. This is reality now for me. So Red Mage 13 says, could the jury file a suit against Maxine Waters for pushing for violence, potentially putting their lives in danger based on what she said if they didn't convict Chauvin? Probably not. That would be a hard lawsuit for a jury to bring. I'm not sure what the cause of action would be there. She didn't address them directly. I mean, what she said was stupid and all of that, but she didn't address the jury directly. She didn't threaten them directly. She doesn't have any way of directly communicating with them by just saying stuff at some rally. So no, I don't think there's a lawsuit there in that regard. Music and Fiction says, now, it's possible, I guess. Well, they'll use it as grounds for a motion for a mistrial. And similarly, they may use reports that Joe Biden said he was, quote unquote, praying for a guilty verdict. Now, whatever you may think about Derek Chauvin, George Floyd, guilt or innocence, that is fine to have that opinion. I would strongly urge people never to pray for a guilty verdict. Praying for the state is a weird thing, in my opinion. It's really, really improper coming from an elected official of any magnitude, specifically the president. We have a court system that is geared up specifically to avoid that type of thing. That's the whole purpose of the U.S. court system, is to avoid the Crown's interference with litigation and with criminality. And so to have the president issue that sort of request is disgusting. He can privately hold those thoughts all day. He should not be publicly voicing them. That is not his thing. He can express after the fact. After the fact. He could express disappointment. He could say, I was praying for a different result. That's all fine and dandy. Prior to the fact, that may be undue influence. And I'm guessing that will be, I don't know that can be the basis of the mistrial claim, because I believe the jury was sequestered at the time that Biden made that statement. However, they can point to it in addition to the Maxine Waters statement, which was made prior to sequestration, and they could potentially use that to funnel the or fuel the idea that a mistrial is proper. So we'll be watching to see what happens with that. Frankly, I don't hold high hopes for a mistrial, even based on that stuff. Just so you know, that's my personal opinion. I think that's probably not going to work for him. Music and Fiction says they're going to riot. There's a flyer going around Portland stating that they're going in hard for George Floyd tonight. So regardless of anything happening today, Chauvin's in jail, tax evasion at least, and MSP/Portland burns. Perception Check says, why does that sound like extortion? I assume you mean referring to me and my $50,000 demand from the other lawyer. It's couched as a settlement request, but it is extortion in the colloquial sense. But legally, lawyers get a little bit of a shield to say, hey, we'll settle this out for $50,000. Ray Gordon, shit. The person who's suing me has never seen $50,000 in their entire life, I'm pretty sure, and they're not going to see a single cent from me. Spoiler alert on that one. Oh no. Drac says, well, now you guys, you have to show up to tonight's live stream. Now you have to, because I've already spoiled it, which that's a contract between you and me. And now you're contractually obligated to show up tonight, or else you'll get sued. That too. So that's what's going on. But anyway, come check it out tonight. We'll talk about it, and we'll also probably talk about how Ray Gordon is bad at chess. Drax says, Nick's getting sued again. What did you do this time? Oh, well, have some whiskey on me. Hey, thanks, brother. Much appreciated. What didn't I do when you really get down to it? What didn't I do? But this is going to be a new saga, I guess. But yeah, he has a legit law firm, assuming it's not completely, fabricated, which I don't have any reason to believe that it is. But I guess other than how lunatic the actual idea that I have caused that person any damage in their entire life, other than that, there's no reason to believe it's fabricated. Tina says, great, I'm about to take a nap. I hope I don't wake up to a burning house. Me too. So, that being said, this will be, an interesting twist on the whole thing. He'll try to subpoena the chat. Probably. They've already threatened to subpoena my records for any contracts that I have associated to him. Okay. Have fun with that. What's up, by the way, Camelot331 there in the chat. I see you, man. How you doing, buddy? Hope you're doing great. Oh, boy. George Clowney, this is not going to be a hung jury. Not this fast. Pretty sure that is not going to be the outcome. I guess it's in theory possible, but typically jurors will not come to the conclusion that there's a hung jury after just a couple hours. We'll see here. But whatever your opinion on the outcome of this, remember that this is the process. The process is there to provide as much protection as any system on earth provides. For all of the flaws of the American legal system, I haven't seen too many examples of anything better. So, hopefully justice will be served. But, fast verdicts aren't always bad for the defense, but in this case, I think it may be. The Dragon's Treasure says the Dragon's Treasure can no longer be associated with Ricada Media LLC due to this ongoing legal trial. We do not condone the bullying of the mentally disabled into a lawsuit. Pay back all the money or we sue for $100,000. Speaking of which, I'll be showcasing some Dragon's Treasure tees that were sent to me tonight at 11. In spite of the lawsuit threat, I don't cave to threats like that. So do your worst, Dragon's Treasure, but I'll be showing off some tea tonight. Did Chauvin have a right to a non-jury trial? You have a right to a jury trial. Your default is a non-jury trial. You request a jury trial. So in theory, yes, he could have gotten a bench trial. I don't know if that would have gone particularly well for him either. So let me start reading some of the chats while we wait. We've got just a couple, it could be any time now. And as soon as it goes, I will switch over. When is the live stream of the verdict going up? As soon as the court actually comes into session. I've got it here. I'm just waiting. I don't want any of these people's opinions. I don't value them at all. So we're waiting. Here, I could put it up. Well, but I'm not going to put the volume on until we're ready. Okay, I'm going to start reading the chats here, though. Mario Carter 13 says, Judge, weird. The jury's verdict is just a note reading left the country. Don't look for me. Nick, by the way, expect the jury to be fully doxxed by the media the second this thing is over. They are going to be as thirsty as possible to release those private details. Triply so if they find him not guilty or if they find him wherever. Let's see. There's another raw courtroom feed. Yeah, I do want it. Pioneer Press, you said? Okay, they've got a raw feed. We'll put that up. There we go. We'll check that out. Teleco, I don't know if Biden's comments could taint the jury because Biden's comments, I believe, came in after they were sequestered. But I would still put it in the motion anyway. Just so you know. Okay, what do we got next? Oh yeah, but by the way, if there's any not guilty verdict on here, they're definitely going to go after the jury. Absolutely. Nicola Clown World Tesla says, you will live to see man-made honks beyond your comprehension. Kermit the Frog says, to protest you being late, I'm going to burn down your favorite Korean donut place. Got my Molotov, got my jogging hammer. Wait, who's that on the roof? Oh, God, no! Gunshots in Korean. R.I.P. to Kermit. Saul Figuera. Come on now. Okay, sorry. There was a little hang up on the Pioneer Press stream. Saul says, reminder, John Adams defended the British soldiers involved in the Boston Massacre and got most of them off with acquittals in a Boston court. There's always a chance for a not acquittal, regardless of the political climate. Yeah, we'll see how we're left. We really don't know anything about this. Let me suggest what a fast jury means for sure. When you go into a jury room, most people have made up their minds on what they are going to do. If they haven't made up their minds, they're ready to be swayed in some way or another. The question is not whether or not you've made up your mind. It's more about whether or not you'll be persuaded by somebody else's opinion as the discussions begin. So, if all of the strong personalities in the room have the same opinion and everybody else is malleable to those opinions, you get a quick result. But you don't know which way that result goes. There's no way to know which way that result is going to go. You have to just kind of roll with it. If they all went in there thinking he's not guilty, then it'd be a really quick deliberation. Well, I guess we should talk about some stuff, look at some evidence, make sure. Then they say it's not guilty. Okay. The really long jury deliberations are when you have a couple strong personalities with opinions that are opposite to each other, because then they're fighting about how long, what should happen, what the end result should be. So we don't know what it should be, but if your thought is that it's either guilty or not guilty, you may be imposing your own biases onto the jury, which is fine. We do that all the time. But we'll see. The Pie Baker says, today we celebrate the birthday of an amazing person. So everyone, can we have a moment of silence, blaze it, and get lit like Auschwitz? Oh, well, that was a bit much on that one. Who's the amazing person's birthday today? I mean, I know it's 420. I get that, but who's the birthday for? Night of Hope says, I grabbed lo mein. That's my go-to riot viewing cuisine. I love lo mein, man. I love lo mein. Wait, it's not. Is it actually Hitler's birthday? Oh, Jesus. The Pie Baker, why would you do that? Oh, no. Not good. Not good. Night of Hope says, oh, come on, baby. Please let it be Lemoyne. It's not Lemoyne, sorry. Samurai Zenji says, well, here's $10 as down payment. Then later I'll send you the remaining 10. Okay. Sounds good. Crusader Saracen says, of all the days for Minneapolis to go up in smoke, because let's face it, the verdict doesn't matter at this point. It just had to be 420, didn't it? Maybe that was intentional. Like maybe they're hoping that a bunch of people will be chilled out, blazing up, and they'll be too busy to light up the town. Maybe that's what they're going for. Crusader Saracen says, related legal question, what is a hung jury and what happens in that case? A hung jury is a mistrial, basically. It's the same effect. So if it's a hung jury, the person is not innocent or guilty, and the state is free to re-prosecute with a new jury. That's a hung jury. Let's see. Hey, what's up, Doug to Naples in the chat? How's it going, man? Doug to Naples says, I mean, what if Biden's prayer to God makes him influence the jury? Subscribe. Yeah, I guess that would be possible. I don't know if they'd be able to prove it, but I think Maxine Waters, her statement, then using Joe Biden's statement as reinforcement, I think is the trick to that. Although, again, I don't hold out high hopes for the, based on just the information we know, high hopes for a mistrial. Sending the Barbs here. Who are the Barbs, Yellow Flash? I don't know who the Barbs are. Oh my goodness. Okay, we've got RH has joined at the lawyer level. Still waiting for the court to do anything. So that's nice. I'm going to put my headphones on so we know exactly when something happens, or so I know. We've got President-elect Austin M. says, in before manslaughter and the riots still happen. Lock it in. Mario Carter 13 says, if the city gets lit, you can't acquit. Another grounds for possible mistrial, of course, is the settlement. The settlement that was given to George Floyd's family, and just numerous statements by public figures, as well as, I believe, one of the prosecutor's son was a city council member who agreed to the settlement amount. So That's another potential grounds for a mistrial. They're going to put all of this into a motion, I'm guessing, if they lose. If they win, of course, there's nothing to do. If they win, they win. And that'd be great for the defense. If they lose, however, you can expect appeals with calls for mistrial and all that stuff. Agent Cobalt says, this threatening lawyer, are they one of your staple reply guys from Twitter? Nope. I think I know who it is if that's the case. No, it's not. It's not. This is a real lawyer. Voice of a Free America says, bad news. The jury got doxxed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but can't the defense lawyer file for a mistrial? Wait, did the jury actually get doxxed? Did that really happen somewhere? And who did it? Pseudo Snark says, how does sentencing guides work in Minnesota? How do they argue aggregating and mitigation? Or aggravation and mitigation. So the sentencing guideline works out like a grid. There's a criminal history chart, and you take the criminal history and you run it on the grid with the severity of the offense. And then there's on the grid, there's different boxes. And once you get out of a certain range, those boxes have a presumed sentence in them. I don't know how they're calculating the criminal history for Floyd. I'm not familiar with his overall criminal history. If there is anything on there that would actually increase it. But long story short, once they go for those situations, they pick the box, and then the sentence is somewhere in the range of that box. Yellow Flash 2 says, Minneapolis going to be lit tonight? Probably. Aggravation and mitigation or departures from the sentencing guidelines have a list of requirements for either for or against them, and those lists of requirements kind of vary. It's a non-exhaustive list, but there's just a bunch of requirements that you could argue. You could say he falls into these categories, therefore the sentence should be aggravated or it should be mitigated, and those, getting a downward departure is a great thing if you can get one for your client, because it typically brings them, out of it. Well, it lowers the severity of the sentence. That's the main thing. I said Floyd's history. I mean Chauvin. Yes, I mean Chauvin. You're right. I don't think Chauvin has a criminal history, so he's going to have a criminal history score of 0. The line says Chauvin should be acquitted. Pseudo Snark. I just read that one. Funk Biscuit says, Nick, I have another guest request. At Ego Cider on Twitter, she's a VTuber who's also a paralegal. She's expressed interest in watching Legal Eagle, and I request you stop this tragedy from happening. Oh, God. No, don't let her do it. The Barbs are a fan group for Nicki Minaj. Why would Nicki Minaj have a fan group at all? It's a weirdly misshapen person. Sheep Sidian says, tonight's show, Ricada versus Lemoyne, the Weasoning. The gray one says, the question is, will she be placed on trial for impeachment? This isn't the first time she's pushed illegal BS. They're not going to impeach Maxine Waters, no. Two goddamn gentlemen says, not guilty. Derek Chauvin gets the gentleman nomination this week. Guilty. George Floyd does. There you go. The gray one says, the question is, will she be placed? Oh, I just read that. Oh, my gosh. Adrastia Rosario, welcome to Paralegal Status. I'm just saying 92 says, even if I was an attorney, suing you would be terrifying simply from how much of my time you would waste laughing the entire time. Yes. Glock 7866, welcome to Paralegal Status. Thank you for joining the channel. Von Cobra says, base chess lawsuit. Paul Durfee says, can't wait for this new anime arc. Mario Carter says, sue Nick for sneezing, assault with a deadly weapon. Buttery Goodness says, let me guess, country grammar girl and her effeminate friend from the protest stream the other night lawyered up. Oh, God, that'd be so much funnier. That would be great. The DCV Titan says, I'm calling an abortion of justice. Guy in the purple says, all hail King Grifter. What do you think Legal Eagle will think, and why is he already wrong? I don't know what Legal Eagle would think. My brain doesn't work in the way his does. Thank Christ for that. Why he's already wrong? Because he's just so unlikable. Automata says, Ray's channel untaught me chess. Agrilith says, likelihood of appeal regardless of the outcome. I think the only appeal is going to come from the defense. The state's not going to appeal this. Would they appeal manslaughter 2 if it's the only charge? I would. I would definitely appeal manslaughter 2. If he's only charged and convicted with manslaughter 2, I would definitely appeal it, and I think Nelson will too. I mean, how far they get is a different story. The state's not going to appeal this. The state would only be able to appeal if it was like dismissed as a mistrial or something like that. They're not going to be able to dismiss a jury or appeal a jury verdict. Space Force Commander says, I bought some supplies for s'mores. Verdict this quick. I bet it's not the fire and brimstone I was hoping for. Pirate Skeleton says, whether actually guilty or not, they've created the perfect case for an appeal. They've done a lot for it. That's for sure. Obi Alfred says, probably not going to see Minneapolis on Google Maps tomorrow morning. Oh, no. No. Drax says, wanted your opinion on this. I've been reading user numbers at Twitter have been going down significantly in 2021. Is it safe to say they don't have the level of influence they claim to have anymore? They'll claim that they're removing the user numbers as they identify bots and spam accounts. That's what Twitter will claim about that. So they will maintain that they're increasing in influence. And practically, they seem to be right. Ralph says, can I get a link to your GoFundMe for your lawsuit defense? We'll see. I don't have one at the moment. Sheepsidian says, hey, may I have a channel boost? It's the same name, Sheepsidian. I do reviews in gaming, media coverage, and art streams soon. Art being mostly drawing, world building, and miniature painting. Thank you, and thank you to anyone who checks my content out. So you guys can check out Sheepsidian, spelled like obsidian, but with sheep instead of obs. So there you go. Thank you, Sheepsidian, for the contribution. Classical Positioning says, not going to believe the verdict unless they say, we the jury find the white cop guilty, bruh, guilty, faux show blood, blat lives matter, sick. There you go. That's from Classical Positioning. Drac, welcome to Super Lawyer Status. Thank you for joining the channel. MC says, would Biden's comments possibly taint any future jury selections in this case? Possibly. Possibly. That's kind of the risk of all of the public statements that they've made so far. And that's the problem with where mistrials don't get re-litigated. Because if you have a mistrial and a bunch of people, public prominent people, make their opinions known, then those opinions could influence a jury. So, Edward W says $5 says the jury sings Camptown races before delivering the verdict. RH says a lot of events happen on 4/20, Hitler's birthday, the Columbine shooting, and Deepwater Horizon, all over a bad day, or overall a bad day. Jordan Jones says, Kermit says, going to Minnesota to have some s'mores over the open fire that used to be a gas station. The Crimson Gamer says, this is what I came back to in the cities. I should have stayed on vacation. Pete Callen says, so who's this George Floyd guy? Salt A says, I find it funny that there was little mention of the history between Chauvin and Floyd during their bouncer days. Was this a case of a personal feud? I think that was walked back. I think that was walked back after it was initially stated by the owner of the club. I think there's a suggestion that maybe she got her black people confused. But I don't know where that ever went. But they didn't no one brought her in, and that would have been probably a good thing to bring in for the prosecution. So I don't know. My video feed is occasionally buffering. Right now, it's not. Just so you know, I am checking that out. Okay, next we've got Von Cobra says, hey, just think how much your state would improve with Minneapolis wiped off the map. Solid red for the next 50 years just means I have to go defend the state border. Talex001 says, within hours of POTUS weighing in verdict, final Yikser says, Japanese spider crabs can live up to 100 years. They are also delicious. Everyone should try some. Helpful. Praetorian says, as the defense, Would a bench trial not have been a better move given the politically charged nature of the case? What are they going to do to the public official judge? Dox him? I think the idea with a jury trial is that you don't want to leave the decision into one person's hands either way, because with a judge you have guilty or innocent. With a jury you have guilty, innocent, or split, and that split has a lot of possibility between it. So I think that's the idea, and split and innocent are both considered kind of wins because they typically don't retry people for that. Habada Hubada says, are the jurors allowed to consider that other cops were present and can't vote guilty for Chauvin? Yeah, they're allowed to consider whatever they want. They could just consider that they do or don't like him. I mean, that's how some trials are decided. So they can consider anything. There's no rules on what a jury is able to consider because there's no thought police. Nether Nemmer says, a verdict this quick indicates it's going to be guilty. The question is which charge. Winnowing the appeal will be interesting. So many things to choose from here. And I was just getting to Mithrin's other chat that says, so guilty, but of which charge? Ruben Prime, welcome to lawyer status. Polar Bear Yago says, taking bets on how many black-owned businesses get burned down by BLM. Extra points for biracial-owned businesses. Dang. Harsh. Soft Top says, hey, Nick, when will we ever hear about the Vic appeal? As soon as the appeals court actually makes their ruling public. As soon as they, release their opinion. Come on. Okay. Niels Mulvad says, can we get some knee action daddy-o? Also, I am painting my goblin army while you're talking. Gonna be lit. Trip, the left-handed Polak, says, roll call rooftop Koreans, i.e. law-abiding citizens. Voice of Free America says, CBS and the Star Tribune were the doxers. Oh, that was nice of them. That was really good of them to do that. Vrin says, Legal Eagle rents his suits and pretends to be an important lawyer while crying himself to sleep. Only a man who does video with fake books in the background could be that evil. Just buy a Kindle. Yeah, and fake law books are really weird because no one uses them. You just use Westlaw or Lexis or Bloomberg Law, whichever one you want to use. Jonathan or Case Text. Jonathan Bordeaux says, known agenda in the Kentucky Derby, 12-1. Known agenda in this case, even odds. The Crow 751 says, O'Keefe about to have one for the history books if he gets Twitter to the discovery stage. That'll be very interesting. I'll be watching the O'Keefe trial, or the O'Keefe versus Twitter thing. I did a long video about that today. By the way, you're free to check it out if you're new to the channel. I did a full breakdown of the James O'Keefe suing Twitter complaint that was published yesterday. I talked about the, pitfalls that they face in the upcoming litigation based on what's in the complaint. So obviously there's a lot of steps to go through, but they've made some interesting choices, and it'll be weird. It'll be neat to see how they work out. So make sure you check that out. The W Factor, welcome to Super Lawyer Status. Von Cobra says, can you explain the enhanced sentencing rule for Minnesota? Not off the top of my head, no, I can't. I'll pull it up in a minute. Orias Rofocal says, a game theory position. Since Chauvin was willing to plead a third, actual guilt or innocence doesn't matter. It wouldn't be immoral to sacrifice him for Minnesota. Ooh, that's an interesting point. And yes, a lot of people don't remember that, but Derek Chauvin was ready to plead guilty to third-degree murder. That plan was rejected by Attorney General at the time, William Barr, because he was worried that a third-degree murder charge would spark riots. This was 3 days after the death of George Floyd. So we all know how that worked out, by the way. The riots happened anyway. So pretty interesting. That was not allowed to be mentioned at trial, of course, but it was in the news. So that news story could actually be part of the basis for the mistrial as well. I do not mean the Minnesota Attorney General. I mean Attorney General William Barr. I do not mean Keith Ellison. Derek Chauvin was actually pleading guilty and was attempting to avoid federal civil rights violation charges on top of his Minnesota-based murder charges. So it needed a sign-off from the federal attorney. And so Bill Barr did reject it. So go ahead and check that out. If the news stories are out there, I also did a video about it. But yes, it was actually William Barr who rejected that deal. He was going to go to a federal prison as opposed to a Minnesota prison. But again, on the idea that the federal government would not bring further charges against him. So that's that. Jason McConnell says, is the seal of Minnesota really a white guy working while a native steals his ride? I mean, we've all been to Grand Portage, but it's a bit much to immortalize it. Oh, man. Come on now. Protocon says, this is a real news headline. County leaders and owners are planning for peaceful protests. God, I hate the media. Ergo says, Star Tribune released list of jurors with all the available details, e.g. niece of Brainerd police officer. The Japanese Yakuza 1 says, I want to see a city in flames. Oh, I thought I heard wind on a microphone. It's very zen sounding. Twin Cities area says, Allahu Akbar, and explodes. Dogsplain says, in the funniest timeline, a hobbyist lawyer weaseled his way into the jury and introduced the concept of jury nullification to the jury, and they'll come back with that laid out. That'd be funny. Anonymous says, hey, it's your favorite fan from Canada. Anonymous and Mum, we're watching you on the couch and loving the coverage as always. You're like YouTube's Nancy Grace. Oh, thanks, I think. On that one, Crusader Saracen says, I got to say that from what little I've followed the jury, because sorry, but I'm so damn burned out on politics, though not as burned out as Minneapolis will be. It seems that the defense attorney really performed well against 4 prosecutors. Respect. Yeah, Eric Nelson unquestionably did a good job. I don't know if it's enough in this. We'll find out. Renal Ryan says, hey, Nick, I'm going to be protesting myself a big screen TV and some Switch games. Is there anything you want while I'm out? No, I'm good, buddy. You go ahead and peacefully protest to your heart's content. I'm not gonna do that. Is the Star Tribune one better? Let me see if I can get the Star Tribune one pulled up. Pioneer Press seems to be having some streaming issues. We'll switch over to the Star Trib. The Stribune. That's too bad. We were outperforming the Pioneer Press's live stream numbers, but we've got a ways to go before we catch up to Star Trib. That'll be my ego was crushed in just one moment. Next is Siren Jag says, I have made it to my local TJ Maxx to participate in the merchandise giveaway once this verdict hits. Your mom says, wonder how many armed guards they got outside that courtroom. If it's a mistrial or not guilty, they're going to storm that courthouse. Yeah, that'll be a mess. And then Oshi says, I'm about to win a Vard Beastman campaign in Warhammer. Only the dwarfs left. Pray for me. I will pray for you harder than Joe Biden prayed for a guilty verdict of Derek Chauvin. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Oh boy. Rumor has it they've basically evacuated some courthouses in downtown Minneapolis. So don't know if that's what they're waiting for. That might be what they're waiting for. But we're coming up to time here. I mean, we're past the initial time. They said 3:30 to 4 p.m. It's now almost 4, of course. I guess the chat can hit like if you want. I'm going to drink some whiskey in preparation. I'm going to drink a nice Kentucky Owl rye whiskey in preparation for this verdict and the ensuing issues. I have to go to Minneapolis tomorrow. So that'll be fun. That'll be a blast, I suppose. Maybe literally. We'll see. Make a stop at the Pump and Munch. Grab some Doritos or something. Johnny Stoffel says, I regret that I have but one like to give. Carishian says, whatever the verdict, faith in the court system will be destroyed. Due process is being thrown out the window. They're even trying to convict the jurors. Woodchuck00 says, conspiracy. Minnesota police disbands. Guard is brought in permanently. Biden becomes authoritarian military director that they wanted Trump to be. Just in Minnesota, though? God, that'd be awful. Why do that to me? Adam Riley says, a young clerk needs to convince the court to enable super chats on their stream. We'll need some cash with the impromptu renovations after today. Ortelio says, as a European, can you explain why this man is on trial? The judge has seen all the evidence. Why does he not rule that it is not beyond reasonable doubt? He opted for a jury trial here, and the jury has the basically final say. So the jury sat and listened to the evidence. In this case, the judge is not the finder of fact, and he is not sitting as the finder of fact. So for him to make a ruling would be relatively improper. It is the jury's job to determine what facts are the correct facts. And then it is the judge's job to apply. Well, it's the jury's job to then apply the law to those facts, the law being the 3 charges that are issued. It is the judge's job to apply all subsequent law to the conviction. So stuff like sentencing and all of that stuff will be based on the judge's fact finding, but not in regards to the guilt or innocence of Derek Chauvin. So I hope that explains it. It's the system that we have. Once a defendant chooses a jury, they become the fact finder, not the judge. Of course, there are things like jury judgment notwithstanding of the verdict, where in theory a judge could determine that no reasonable jury could have found him guilty, even though they did. That is not going to happen in this case. So I hope that helps answer your question, though. Vrin says, is it true that if the police ask you to talk, you should just decline and be quiet so they can't catch you or arrest you for anything? That's my advice to people. Don't talk to the cops. Be respectful, but don't talk to them. You don't have any reason to. If they insist, if they demand, if they don't let you leave, like if you say, no, thank you, quietly start to walk away and they stop you, then you're under arrest and things are massively different. But in general, if they're just, if they come up to you and say, hey, can I see your ID, blah, 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 say, no, thanks, and then calmly start to walk away. And if they issue a command to stop, things change. But at that point, my advice is I will not answer any questions without a lawyer present. I'm invoking my Sixth Amendment right to counsel. Let's see. Next is, where are we? Talix001 says, Pump and Munch is way in the wrong order, man. I know. Justin Tapp says, hi. Hi, how are you? Mr. Morris says, take a visit to Cup Foods, see what all the hype is all about. No, I hear they don't take counterfeit 20s. I don't shop anywhere that doesn't take fake money. Vrithika Frostscale says, stay safe, Nick, in case the worst happens. Oh, I will ultimately be safe. Even if I drive to Minneapolis and I'm not able to get to my destination, I'll just turn around and go home. I mean, that's the way of the world. I'm not crazy. Vexner3 says, you've helped inform me over the years. No, it isn't the topic of your coverage now, but later, can you give me your take on what Tucker said about displacement? Just curious about your perspective. Can you email me a link to what Tucker said about it so I can check it out? I don't know the reference. Red Driver says, so does a delay in reading the verdict mean anything? Prepping for the not guilty call lulls? I don't think it means anything that we can discern, other than, for whatever reason, they're not ready. Courts operate on their own timelines. Reddit Silver member says, jury late, they black, Jesse Lee Peterson. Classical Positioning says, you're really bad at reading Ebonics, Nikki. Well, look, I don't read Ebonics. I speak it naturally. And so when I read someone else's attempt at Ebonics, it's a little offensive. And I'm not so good at doing that because I for obvious reasons, am naturally good at Ebonics. The Exceptional Detective says, daily reminder that the Gunt will rise again. Memphis 10 for life. Gator survives off the grease itself. Also not guilty on all counts. Dab. Well, thank you. Rogue says, just like last year, the police and politicians will most likely stand down while letting the dogs loose. I think they mean to terrorize everyone. Slave Master Tactics 101. Oh, here we go.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Here we go. We're set. Judge walked in with no mask on, like a true Chad, I guess. Last chance to get your predictions in. I'm sticking with guilty on manslaughter 2.
All rise for the jury. Please be seated. Members of the jury, I understand you have a verdict.
They should do this more like a game show. Daniel Collins says, if your activist group can make a country declare a state of emergency, maybe you aren't the good guys.
Members of the jury, I will now read the verdicts as they will appear in the permanent records of the 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, Defendant. Verdict, Count 1. Court File Number 27, CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to Count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty.
Oh, there it is.
To this 20th day of
Done.
April 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021.
Wow, guilty on the third degree as well.
1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to the
and guilty. It's across the board a clean
PM.
sweep.
Jury foreperson 019. Members of the
There
jury,
you
I'm
go.
now going to ask you individually if these are your true and correct verdicts. Please respond yes or no. Juror number 2, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 9, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 19, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 27, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 44, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 52, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 55,
Imagine
are
what's
these your
going
true
on
and
in his
correct
head. Oh my
verdicts?
God.
Yes.
Juror number 79, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 85, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 89, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 91, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 92, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Are these your verdicts, so say you one, so say you all?
Yes.
Members of the jury, I find that the verdicts as read reflect the will of the jury and will be filed accordingly. I have to thank you on behalf of the people of the state of Minnesota for not only jury service, but heavy-duty jury service. What I'm going to ask you to do now is to follow the deputy back into your usual room, and I will join you in a few minutes to answer questions and to advise you further. So, all rise for the jury.
There you have it, y'all. There you have it. This should not be a surprise to anybody. Just so we're clear. This should not be a surprising verdict to anyone.
With the guilty verdicts returned, we're going to have Blakely, you may file a written argument as to Blakely factors within 1 week. The court will issue findings on the Blakely factors, the factual findings, 1 week after that. We'll order a PSI immediately returnable in 4 weeks. And we will also
I'll talk about it in just a second.
Briefing on, after you get the PSI, 6 weeks from now, and then 8 weeks from now, we will have sentencing. We'll get you the exact dates in a scheduling order. Is there a motion on behalf of the state?
Your Honor, the state would move to have the court revoke the defendant's bail and remand him into custody pending sentencing.
Bail is revoked, bond is discharged, and the defendant is remanded to the custody of the Hennepin County Sheriff. Anything further?
F.
All
right. Thank you.
Well, there he goes. Okay, so lots of stuff going on. He's got 6 weeks to submit a pre-sentencing inventory.
We're adjourned.
He'll be. That's it. That's it for this. They're adjourned. Okay. So he's got to submit to a pre-sentencing inventory. They will go through and determine what the sentence factors will be. They will, see if he violated his bail and all that stuff, which no indication that he did any of that, of course, but that is part of the pre-sentencing inventory, as well as checking out criminal history and other stuff. So he is going to have 6 weeks to get that done, and then somewhere around 8 weeks, they'll actually do the sentencing hearing, which they will determine if there are any sufficient aggregating factors or any justification for a departure upward or downward from the sentence. And then they will render the sentence, and that will be the verdict. He is already, as you saw, he was getting handcuffed there at the end. He is already going to start serving his time today. Today he is doing that. So that's that. The reason why I said you should not be surprised about a full sweep is because despite what you may have heard, and again, Twitter and Facebook are very, very good at putting us into bubbles that they think we want to be in. Despite what you may have heard, the state's medical examiners put forth an extremely strong case for a guilty verdict on all counts. And I know that the internet doesn't like the medical examiners and can point to different things or whatever, but the jury is not the internet. The jury is a group of 12 normal people. The internet is never normal people. Being on the internet, trust me, the jury is 12 normal people removed from the internet, removed from their information bubbles, removed from all that, and all they're supposedly supposed to get is what's directly in front of them, right? What's directly in front of them at the time. And that's what's presented to them. They don't get like a clipped out sort of, look at the judge own this Karen haircut lady juror. They don't get that. They just see the whole questioning all at once. And so with that, the medical examiner's testimony was 5 experts. And think of it as a post on a circus tent, right? and there's 5 experts swinging sledgehammers into that post, that's what you're going to get. And that's a really hard thing to overcome. Now, Eric Nelson did a very good job trying to introduce doubt, specifically on the counts of intentional actions. I think he did a great job. I would hire him to defend me in a heartbeat if I was charged with a serious crime in Minnesota, and I think he would do a competent job. I have no particular criticisms of his defense. He was left with a really, really difficult set of facts. And that set of facts includes a video that is 10 minutes of watching a man die. And that we will probably need to discuss in the future if videos of the death should even be allowed in a jury, because they're so powerful to watch someone die on camera, which is not something a lot of people do on their average day. To have them watch that is extremely powerful. So with that said, the next steps are the obvious calls for a mistrial. There are plenty of legitimate grounds to bring the motion. It does not mean they're going to win, and it does not mean those grounds are sufficient for a victory. I would not get your hopes up on it. I think a mistrial is extremely unlikely, even at the appeals court level. That's just my opinion. We'll see what they put forward. But they have various aspects of misconduct from the state that was overlooked by the judge and overlooked on the record. They objected to it. The judge mentioned it. He even excoriated the state a little bit, telling them to do better. But ultimately, he didn't rule against the state. And so those types of things will likely be added to the mistrial call, along with the statements of Maxine Waters and Joe Biden. Those types of things will all be aggregated into their appeal and call for a mistrial, and that will be, part of the process. That's a long part of the process. Chauvin will be in jail, so hopefully he will be safe during that time while justice continues to grind its wheels. You never want someone to end up dying in prison before they find out that they weren't actually guilty because of undue influence or something like that. The media's doxing of the jurors should absolutely be included in that, along with the fact that there's literally a mob outside the courthouse and outside everywhere else in the entire city is held ransom by angry people. So we'll see. But I do want to say that, again, if you thought that the defense was slam dunk winning this case because you're being delivered various information about sort of what was going on in the courtroom, I'm sorry that information bubbles exist. They shouldn't, but that's the world we live in. And I would humbly suggest that what I said at the beginning, when the defense is doing really well against the early witnesses, was it's going to hinge on 5 medical experts testifying that Chauvin's the cause of death. And unless they can overcome that, they're going to have a real hard time convincing a jury of something different. So that, from my perspective, that looks to be what happened. Of course, it conveniently confirms my initial assertion. So that's why I'm also rolling with it, because I like things that confirm what I said, because that means I was right. So my own biases are at play there as well. We'll see. We'll see as this progresses. Thank you guys for hanging out. I'm going to read the rest of the chats. If you do leave, I do appreciate you showing up. This is a huge stream. I have a show again at 6. It's a completely different subject. If you want to come check it out, it'll be on this channel. And then a show again at 11. The normal show will happen at 11 o'clock still tonight. And I will talk about me being sued. So if you want to have some fun and more relaxed conversation, come out at 11 for that. Other than that, let's get through the rest of these chats. Thank you to everyone who donated. I will read all of the chats as we get through this. But again, much appreciated to everybody who came by and contributed. You really helped the channel a lot. I don't talk about it, but we've got a big audience here, and you guys make this the most fun job on the planet. So thank you. All right. So The Big Red Bear says the look on his face says it all. He's shocked, but he really shouldn't be. Even with good lawyering, the situation was just really hard to win on, as one would expect with the evidence. I'm surprised it's a clean sweep, though. I kind of am, too. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Nova Zero says, can we take bets that burn loop murder is going to, peacefully burn loop murder your state anyway? Look, it's not a peaceful protest anymore. It's now a peaceful celebration. It's now a peaceful celebration. And how dare you suggest anything else? It's going to be some peaceful celebration, turning over cars and lighting them on fire and stuff. It'll be great. Just like when your team wins the NBA championship or whatever. Jordan Jones says, I've watched Gavel to Gavel. I kindly disagree. At the end of the day, we all want to pass away in our sleep, not under the restraint of law enforcement based on our poor choices in life, i.e. drug use. This was political. You can disagree with me all day. That's fine. I'm happy to entertain the disagreement, and it very well could have been political. But like I said, I'm going with the answer that confirms my biases, and you don't have a right to come and tell me to do something different. Okay, this is my stream, and I made it. Just kidding. Just kidding, of course. Next. Drac2326 says, hey, Nick, I was wondering if you could give my channel a bump as a birthday present. I'm a gamer and podcaster who live streams and loves sitting and talking with people. Channel is Drac2326, and thanks so much for all who helped me out. Okay, guys, you can check out Drac2326. Hopefully you enjoy his content and find something fun there. CH says, I'm predicting riots regardless of verdict. Brandon says, just came from a video of the crowd outside. I have never hated a group of people with more passion than I do now. Pseudosnark says, how the F can you be guilty of 3 unlawful deaths for 1 dead body? Minnesota is trash. Now, he's not guilty of 3 different unlawful deaths. He's guilty of 3 separate causes of death, which sounds weird, but all of those things have different elements. And it makes an appeal very complicated to get a clean sweep on the appeal. Because if you defeat the fact that he committed felony assault against Floyd, that's what their underlying basis for the unintentional murder is the felony assault. If you defeat the felony assault on appeal, then you still have the reckless homicide, which is the 3rd-degree murder, and then you still have the culpable negligence, which is the 2nd-degree murder. In essence, they said all 3 of the factors for the death exist in this case. So they're saying that there was an intentional assault, but an unintentional homicide that resulted from the assault. They're saying that there was similarly reckless disregard for Floyd's life when Chauvin created an unreasonably dangerous situation, and that the reckless disregard resulted in the death. And they're saying that Chauvin's culpable negligence is also the cause of the death. So they're saying that all 3 of those things are the reasons, and all 3 of them can be because they have different elements. Remember, for a murder, you don't have to be the only reason something occurs. Same with manslaughter. Look, if someone is ODing in their car and dying on the side of the road, but you are drunk driving and you plow into the side of the vehicle, you're still and that is a cause of death. You're still responsible, even if they otherwise would have died. And that's a thing that's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but that's the way this is turning out for this one. Hey, the quartering. What's up? Says literally 0 option for those jurors, then guilty on all 3 counts. Journos doxing them, Mad Maxine and riots. The jurors were tampered with. They will get an appeal and likely get it down significantly. We will see, won't we? We will see. I don't hold out much hope for an appeal on this one, but it's very possible, and it really does kind of depend on what comes out in the meantime. If there's any evidence that any of the jurors were contacted specifically or their family contacted specifically by press, we could see appeals really turn around. So we'll be watching. We'll be watching, absolutely. By the way, thank you to Jeremy for that contribution. Much appreciated, buddy. Hope everything's going well with you. The Texan 83 says, cowards, let the state burn. You get what you vote for. RioFX says, so normal policing will get police sent to jail for crimes. We'll see how that goes. I mean, a minor counterpoint, but normal policing doesn't result in a death like this most of the time. So I can quibble over whether or not what he did was assault, and I think there's plenty of doubt on the assaultive behavior. I don't think he had any intention of harming Floyd specifically. However, most of the time you don't have someone dying from this type of thing. So I don't know that it's necessarily normal policing, but we'll see. I mean, again, we'll see. Wilson Fisk says any white pill that existed is now lost. You guys are misunderstanding what I'm saying, but it's okay. It's okay. Again, in the context of the policing and the maneuvers that were used. Otherwise, we would probably see a lot more of these videos going on. We really don't see a lot of them. So it's not like this is part of everyday life for police across America that they're kneeling on someone. Whether or not that killed him, it doesn't matter. You don't see that footage all the time. That's all I'm saying. Nick Pagan says, the left now controls the courts through violence. When do we say enough is enough and start fighting back? No idea. Johnny Stoffel. Thank you for the donation. Classical Positioning says, it just became open season on cops. Get out of Looterville, folks. Cybercat says, guilty on all counts. Bailiff, please escort the defendants against the wall. Chauvin never had a chance. Arcadian Twilight says, this does not surprise me, as most people these days are ruled by fear and paranoia, with near nobody willing to stand and fight for their principles. Stunner 900 says, policing is dead. Stephen Knizik says, so the American court and jury system bows to overt and covert threats of violence. I guess Tom Robinson really was the criminal of To Kill a Mockingbird, since all the winter said he was. Joskp says, if you don't unanimously vote guilty on all accounts, you're all dead all at once? Yes. Vertica Froscale says, we need justice for Congress or the Senate meddling in this. Can Waters be arrested for obstruction? No, not arrested, but it could be the grounds for a mistrial. Cynic in Chief says, Nate the lawyer wins, Nick and Barnes loses. No, I think, like I said to Nate, I thought his legal assessment of it was on point. I just had a feeling the jury would have a little more trouble with the second-degree murder charge than they did. And clearly, they did not. Nate called it. DCV Titan says, full-on abortion, called it. Angela Richter says, when he polled the jury, I just heard relief in their voices that it was now off their shoulders and their hands were clean as far as they were concerned. Lady, let's see, what do we got? Lady Tacoma says, give him a month before he's found dead in jail. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Munchlax 77 says, eternal truth number 2, Epstein didn't kill himself. Javier Miedo says, brace yourself, Chauvin is going to become the next Epstein. Tasman 3002 says, I can't believe the jury made their decision based on the facts presented. Given the circumstances surrounding the case, their decision was influenced by the political circumstances and intimidation. Or it wasn't. Or it was influenced by their own personal biases. Like, don't forget that it's very possible that they've got 12 liberal jurors. Right? Specifically liberal jurors who just effectively passed the voir dire screening. Like that's not an unreasonable possibility. It's just 12 people. 12 different people could have come to a completely different answer, and it might have had nothing to do with intimidation. It very possibly did, but it might not have. They could just have their own internal biases. Come on now, Nick, what? You don't think that 12 anti-cop jurors could get on there? I mean, I think so. Zomzom says, what is your opinion as a lawyer? How long do you think he's actually going to get sentenced? Oh, gosh. Let's see what the sentencing is for Minnesota murder second degree statute. Do you want me to do the sentencing guidelines on him? Maximum is 40 years. Let's see. Sentencing guidelines. Do the standard grid. Here we go. Murder, second degree, unintentional. So assuming he has a criminal history score of 0, we've got 150 months being the average. So a little over 10 years. Now, there's a weird thing in here where the other 2 charges may actually aggravate the sentence and give him criminal history points. So that could push him up to the 180 to 195 month range. Again, I'm not 100% sure how they're going to score this, but criminal history scores get this. I think, by the way, this is completely unjust. I think this is completely unjust. But if you are charged with multiple crimes and convicted on multiple crimes at the same time, they increase the criminal history score. I think that's wrong. But I don't know if they're going to score it that way. But it could be in this 195 month range. It could be up to 210 on average. Now, they have this whole range to go through on the guidelines. That's just within the guidelines. That is not a departure upward or downward from the sentence. So, why do you think it's wrong? Because if you're charged with 4 crimes at once and convicted of 4 crimes at once, I don't think you had a criminal history that was different for those 4 crimes. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, because you weren't guilty of any crime until the same day, and you're charged with all 4, you're convicted of all 4 at the same day. How did you have a criminal history from those other ones? That seems weird to me. But it's how Minnesota does it. So I'm not sure on this one, since they're all the same act, if they get aggregated together. But that'll be, the sentence it will be minimum 150 months and then maximum 240 months for the unintentional murder. The third degree murder and the manslaughter will probably actually get rolled into, they'll serve them concurrently, or he'll serve them concurrently, not consecutively. So just the longest charge will be served out is how that works. So maybe I'll do a separate video on the sentencing guidelines and how they may play into this. We'll see as we go. But they're also going to, they're going to be talking about it as the case moves on. All right. Next. Lagging. Can you explain how you can be guilty of both murder and manslaughter for the same death? Aren't they mutually exclusive? No, both can be significant factors in the death. Both could have been causes. Is the legal reasoning? Practically, yes, they're mutually exclusive. Like, one thing killed him or the other thing killed him, right? But legally speaking, we don't have to worry about practicality. George Briggs says, what, if anything, could this mean for the case against the officer who killed Dante Wright? I don't think it means anything. It's a completely different situation. That officer's charged with manslaughter. I think they could have charged her with third-degree murder, but they charged her with manslaughter instead. And very possible. Very possible that she gets convicted. And that's going to be that's going to be a weird case itself, man. James Clark says, call it harsh, but I see stratocratic republic as the only way to save this republic in general at this point. Who's left to turn to when people, legislators, and executive admins are actively ruling by brutal autocracy? Hobo Frodo says, let this be a lesson to conservacucks who live in their echo chamber. Let the salt flow. Jackson Kai says, not surprised, but I am disappointed. I don't see how you can find murder to other than you feel threatened. If he's guilty anyway, throw away the key. Vexner3 says, I sent the link to Tucker's comments in your email when you get the chance. Tucker Carlson comments. Thank you so much, Vexner. Wilson Fisk says, question. We are entitled to be judged by a jury of our peers. If I'm an internet weirdo, wouldn't I have the right to be judged by internet weirdos? Unfortunately, that jury of our peers has taken on a term of art to just mean 12 people in the same state as you, basically. John and Mel Gerard says, bull crap, Susan won't let me say the S word. John A. says, once an excuse, always an excuse. They're not going to stop. Look at anything the left has ever done, i.e. the lockdown, summer of love, name your pick. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no reason that they wouldn't have a riot over this. Remember, even if they got justice for Floyd tonight, they got Dante Wright. Dante Wright. Say his name, Dante Wright. No justice, no peace. Prosecute the police. It's coming. It's coming. Pirate Skeleton says you should do a nuanced talk one day about the actual causes for police brutality / abuse as opposed to the media BLM narrative. That might be a good show. Project 17 says America is in desperate trouble. The Stars and Stripes is now the hammer and sickle. Hammer and sickle. Kyra says, does he have to sit with inmates while appeal is processing? Eek? Yeah. He's going to prison. Or, well, at least jail. At least county. Polyfrog64 says, we now live under mob rule. All they have to do is show up and threaten people and they get what they want. What are the chances of appeal? Fear works. I don't think there's a good chance on appeal, but maybe there is. I haven't seen all of the grounds they'll raise for the appeal. We'll have to judge it based on the filing. Science of Truth says, so you think Maxine Waters affected the outcome of the case? And do you think that may have given a pathway for the defendant? Do I think she really did? I have no information to determine either way. Do I think it's given a pathway for the defendant? Yes, and he should take it. So with that, yeah. To be very, very clear, just because I don't know if any of the jurors saw Maxine Waters' stupid statements, so I don't know if that affected the outcome at all. I mean, how could you know unless you know the jurors? That being said, Maxine Waters is a terrible human being and an absolute pile of garbage and should be removed from office immediately. And if her words are enough to get the case thrown out, then that's her fault. And hopefully people will come after her politically on that. Bladed Cloud 6966 says, Nick, congrats on the 2K likes until Susan takes them away again. Thank you. Joshua Vidrine says, reminder, this started out as a simple arrest, not a war between BLM, Antifa, and Dems versus the police and America in general. They caused this. They did. They made it political to their advantage. To their advantage. Insinium VGC says, if you don't think this is political, I got a beachfront property in Colorado to sell you. We'll see. I mean, no, we won't. We won't ever know. We'll never know. We'll just have our thoughts on it. Polyfrog64 says, Nick, an Amber Alert went out to everyone's cell phone. You're wrong. Nelson brought this up. It was obvious that if they didn't do this, they would riot. Okay. We'll see. I agree that it was obvious that if they didn't do this, they'd riot. The lie, of course, is that they're going to riot anyway. But that being said, they're going to have to argue that in court, and maybe they'll win, maybe they won't. I'll be watching. Mr. Rigsby Gaming says, Toye, may I please come riot at your house? Since I'm officially no longer morbidly obese, I'll just loot your pantry. Also, why does Vic look like he belongs at Rand Ranch in his anime Matsuri picture? Look, we're not going to talk about it. Carishian says, do you think that if the trial was not held in Minneapolis, it would have made a more accepted reaction? Can a court remain anonymous like the jury? Court cannot remain anonymous, but I do think it should have been held outside of Minneapolis. I think giving people a longer distance to travel to make their protests would have been, would have been a good move. I don't know that any of the other courts would have wanted it, but I think they should have moved it to a smaller town. Absolutely. Pablo Mendoza says, I heard something about a mistrial. Is that legit? Not at this moment. If they'll file for a mistrial and maybe they'll win, we'll see. Fo Chung Esquire says, this is not a left versus right situation. Policing needs to be addressed. I had a gun pulled on me by a cop for just walking with my friends. Yeah, I agree. The trial got turned into a left-right situation, which is really, really frustrating and stupid. Dick Von Poundat Snatch says, so when does the celebratory cocktail hour at Nike start? Probably now. I'm guessing they're already there. Philly James 1 says, I would resign immediately if I was a police officer in any liberal city. They have no support from their superiors and very little from their community. Doc Hollandaise says, what are your thoughts on his appeal chances? Not great. Will a judge be willing to overturn the results based on the potential for mayhem? Yeah, I think they'd be willing to overturn the results, but I don't know that they have enough basis for it. I'm not saying they don't. I don't know what they're going to file. So until they file it, we can't really assess it. Kirk Thompson says, legally speaking, we don't have to be worried about with practicality. Ricada dropping truth. Oh, yeah. Legal system's a mess. Hey, H. Wetzler. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for the donation. Much appreciated. 200 Watt Studio says, where the white women at? Hail Nikki. Kaiser TV says, jury punted to appeals court to save themselves. One of those idiots is going to give an interview, say they were afraid of riots. Bingo, bango. That could do it right there, especially if they mention Maxine Waters or an Amber Alert. All Your Base says, all this means for me is the dating pool is that much smaller. I have a thing for black women. Snowbird says, hi, Nick. I was watching Officer Tatum's live stream about it too. I wonder if cops will leave now. The community don't have their backs. Minneapolis cops, I think, not only do the community not have Minneapolis cops' backs, but from what I hear, other departments around the state are tired of Minneapolis. They're not sending officers to help anymore. I'd get out of Minneapolis. Eric Nail says, do you think they should have sequestered the jury? Yes, absolutely they should have. Absolutely they should have for the entire trial. It's silly that they didn't, but, you know. Joseph Way says, do you think once the jurors are found out they will be targeted because of their decision? No. No, I don't think they'll be targeted because of their decision. We're back. To answer the question from Eric Nail, or from Joseph Way, no, I don't think they'll be targeted for their decision. Absolutely. I don't think that. The right typically doesn't do that. If they had decided the other way, yes, I would think they would be targeted. And that's not a left versus right thing. That's just a history thing. The gray one says, I hadn't expected all three. This is extremely troubling, especially given the circumstances. Waters should be on trial for impeachment just like Trump. Snuggle Struggle says, now that mob rule matters more than justice, all the police should advance this insanity and just quit already to allow Dems their martial law. Here we go. Nike says, we have a big fire sale at all locations in Minneapolis today and tomorrow, 100% off. Also, why in God's name do you have to go to Minneapolis tomorrow? Because I do. Bob says, safe haven laws say that mothers have 24 hours after they're born to give up responsibility to their child. What equal law do fathers have to give up responsibility? 0. Mario Carter says, the civil rights movement started with a lynching in the streets. Our civil rights ended with a lynching in the courtroom. Kermit says, holy shit. Chauvin just got whipped and nay-nayed on. You hate to see it. Anyway, I'm going to loot my post-verdict PS5. Good luck finding the store that has it. Nick Figgett, I can't say his full name, says, hey, Figgett, when are you going to stop pretending that Chauvin got a fair trial? Did I say he got a fair trial? When are you going to mention the jury intimidation? I've mentioned it several times. Stop pretending that the jury only got swayed by the prosecution's case. Bullshit. You have, to be fair, you have no idea what any individual juror heard outside of the courtroom. You only know what they heard in the courtroom. Now, they could have heard something. You got to fucking prove it, buddy. You got to prove it to get a win. We can pretend all day that we know whatever happened, but we don't. And if you want to sit around and pretend, that's on you. Go ahead and do it. But until you show it, you're not changing the outcome. And I'm talking about the legal ramifications of this and what the legal outcomes are. So if you want to believe that the jury was intimidated, by all means, it looks like they were. Like I said, there's a mob outside the courtroom or outside the courthouse. That seems like intimidation to me. Maxine Waters talking seems like intimidation to me. I mentioned Joe Biden. Seems like intimidation to me. But I can't prove that anybody heard that. Now, hopefully for him, his defense attorneys can prove that. And if they can, he'll get out. If they can't, he won't. I don't have high prospects for the appeal, though, for all sorts of reasons. But I haven't seen what they filed anyway. So until we see that, then we won't be able to assess it. We just get to pretend. And by the way, sitting around and pretending about what the jury was thinking is why a whole lot of people thought he was going to walk no problem. I just want to point that out. That a whole lot of people were like, oh, he's going to walk. Prosecution's biffed this one over and over and over. That was yesterday. And the day before, 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 and the day before. Today was, oh, it's entirely rigged by politics. Yesterday it was prosecution screwed this up, lol, even in closing prosecution sucked, he's going to walk. Today it's political. So let's not pretend here that everybody is fully consistent on their opinions the entire time. People change their minds based on circumstances, but we don't know what the jury saw or didn't see. And until the defense files something that the jury saw, until they go ahead and try and bring that to trial, we won't know how that goes either. But again, if you want to think it was political intimidation, I'm not going to disagree with you. It very likely was. I just can't prove it. And until I can, I'm not going to argue that it's the definite thing. What I know is what happened in the courtroom. And that's it. And even on that, I think that the second-degree murder charge is a bad charge, a bad conviction. So, for what it's worth, Night of Hope says, I'm a conservative, but I think in this case, at least murder 3 was legitimate. Can't sit on a guy's back for minutes when he doesn't have a pulse and pretend he was still resisting arrest, even if he died from something else when you instigated the event. Bob says, as if pigs didn't have anything already to be worried about, now they have far leftist groups. Night of Hope says, having said that, I do believe 100% that if Floyd was white, Chauvin would have walked scot-free because cops always walk for everything. I don't agree with that, but it's partially my team's fault for worshiping the police like it's something to do. Oh yeah, I think if Floyd was white, that Chauvin wouldn't have even been charged. Dave says, if that really is the case, my opinion of Minnesota law is severely dropped. I'm not of the mind. Well, welcome to the party, pal. I am not of the mind that getting multiple charges at the same time should be considered having criminal history. That just makes no sense. It's not justice, in my opinion. Yeah, me too. Rekka Wronghouse says, hey, Nick, how are you doing? I'm doing good. I missed 40 minutes of stream, so hope nothing too important happened. I was reworking an old D&D race of racist dragon-hunting shark people that I made 5 years ago. Take my shekels, and hey, when are you doing TRPG stream on Twitch? Hopefully soon, man. I want to get back into that. It's fun. Okay, next, we've got Joseph Red. Philip James says, could the jury have been remote location? I mean, in theory, yes. Practically, no. They could do something like that, but they haven't. H. Wetzler says, was this really all mob rule? Don't know. We can't know what was in the jurors' heads. We really can't. M says, it's a shame BLM tainted this trial with their spurging. If people can separate the riots from the case, they'd be a lot less upset by the outcome. I agree. Tasman says, I thought for sure manslaughter, not like this, not like this. Don Joe says, to all the people saying cops should be resigning is exactly what the elites want. Get rid of all the sane, rational cops and replace them with golems to crack down on everyone on behalf of Zog. Very specific. Onyx Robot says, my buddies are saying that the other 3 officers should eat charges because they did nothing to stop Chauvin. What's your thoughts? I don't know. I don't know, man. I feel like they did some different stuff. They asked Chauvin about the pulse. They asked him if they should roll him on his side. Chauvin overruled him. I think they have a good defense. I think they have better defenses than him. I don't think they should eat the charges. Panda Pie says, this may as well have been a circus. The riots were everywhere. Their motive was evident. The threats were real. The jury probably had their hands tied with the chaos outside the courthouse. The whole thing is a mess. Yeah, I agree. It's a mess. Hopefully they'll be able to, figure it out on appeal. whatever they end up doing. Carishian says, what does a juror do when they get sequestered? Sit around in a hotel? Do they have like a book to read or something? Are they basically in prison? Do their phones get taken? Book to read, maybe. Are they basically in prison? Yes. And do their phones get taken? Yes. Polyfrog64 says, one last thing, Nick. This will lead to nationwide Ferguson effect. That is much worse. Cops will look at this and say, I'm not responding to any calls involving blacks, or they will quit or retire. We'll see. I mean, maybe that's the outcome that's needed, frankly, for whatever the outcome or the result is of that. The Weeb Studio says, rackets is why I like you. We don't agree on many things political, but you do keep it fair, and that's why I come back. Hey, cool. Thanks. KS Wheel says, there is a severe double standard when it comes to taking a knee. Football players, yes. Cops, no. JL Not Here says, stop turning your head. Your Mars boy nose keeps knocking over my drink here in Mankato. I needed the drink to enjoy the bonfires. C4 Owns says, when they were reading the verdict, it sounded like a majority of women. You think the prosecution played a better tactical game because of the emotion? They played a better tactical game because they won. There's objective evidence that the prosecution did better because they won the case. So other than that, no idea. Ty Timmons says, so George Floyd's personal behavior had absolutely nothing to do with his own demise. No, that's not what it says, actually. Not even his obvious history of drug abuse, huh? This is BS. That was a weird thing that Nelson was going on about how if there were any other contributing factor, then Chauvin wasn't guilty. That's not the law. The law is if you were a substantial contributing factor in the death, then your responsibility is there and you're guilty. So all of his personal obvious history could have been a factor in his death. If Chauvin is the straw that causes the death versus everything else not causing the death, then Chauvin's guilty under the law. So that was it was a weird part of the argument by Eric Nelson because it just was contrary to the legal reality. Lil Meme says, bad guy Chauvin put away. Man, I hope memes are made of this. I sure do love memes. Hyderp X says, Hydro. People who operate from emotions are easy to fool. Texas Red says, like I said in live chat Wednesday, I didn't think any argument could introduce reasonable doubt. I remain unconvinced that Chauvin committed murder too. James Gary says, thanks for what you do, doing what you do, Nick. Hey, my pleasure. Thank you. Roof Korean, the Black Pilled says, Roof Korean's ratio. It's best 100 FBI and ATF get Minecrafted, then one of my constitutional rights get violated. LEOs resign while you can. Snuggle Struggle says, now the failed political leaders who allowed the mob to oppress and terrorize the masses in Minnesota should be detained and prosecuted. Wilson Fisk says, MSNBC, verdict not enough. Check PayPig for link. Wick Dipper says, why are you having your AI bot upstage you with Viva Fry? Oh, does he have Viva on right now? That's great. That'd be awesome. Finally. Anthony James says, Nick, why aren't you talking about the real story here? All women that just realize they want to get their back blown out by Chauvin, and before Chauvin gets a female attorney during appeals. And Parod 0807 says, catch me sucking another man's genitalia before I become a cop. And then finally, Jonathan Galterini, JDLLM. Oh, man. If that's real, congrats on having a legal master's. Maya Harris, related to Kamala on Twitter, said, let's be clear, a just verdict is not the same as justice. Yeah, that's how it's going to go, man. That's how it's going to go. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I will see you again at 6 and again at 11. So 6 is in an hour. I got to somehow get some food for me and the family before that happens. We'll see you then to hang out with Vox Day. And then tonight to talk about my impending lawsuit and all sorts of fun stuff. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Really appreciate it. We'll catch you then. Peace. Peace. Jonathan Galterini just became a member. Thank you.
He drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging along with his glass by his side and his kids asleep tight. We'll hear some law-splaining tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes meta, raging at idiots from Twitterland. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, his lady is fair, and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an ardbeg, a bow, more of Lafroig. The spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear law-splaining tonight. From the white shores of Nairn to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, the guests are all plentiful, from Doug T to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. Get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear law-splaining tonight. From the white shores of Nairn to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law